If you are monitoring Russia closely, you might notice that most information out there is about what's happening in the front lines between Russia and Ukraine and inside Russia. And it makes perfect sense. What's happening inside is crucial to understand, know, and try to influence the situation. But if you think that nothing important is happening outside Russia, you are wrong. Last year and a half, Russia's been secretly operating all around the world to cause instability and score political points. It's been trying to establish new world order. And this is why I'm telling you this. Do not underestimate damage Russia can cause abroad. Do not underestimate damage to your country. Do not underestimate Putin. He is still in the game. Howdy, howdy, everyone. My name is Konstantin, and welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. No propaganda, BS, or lies here, only truth, common sense, and logic. And some emotions too, of course, because I'm a human being after all. Today's live stream will consist of 3 parts: the message, then discussing in a live stream chat, and the usual prayer at the end. And after I'm done with the message, I would like to clarify some things about yesterday's stream. So, shall we? I usually zero in on Russia. I've been studying everything about today's Russia, basically under a microscope. I've become an expert on today's Russia. And I think I've done a pretty good job painting a big picture of everything what's happening inside the country. Inside the country, not the outside. But I have also noticed that there are things that Russia has been doing abroad. It has been trying to extend its influence to score political points and win friends. And it's done things. And Russia keeps things quiet. It's not exposed or discussed anywhere. Well, you can get information here and there through Ministry of Foreign Affairs, press releases, through official information on who visits Russia and who Vladimir Putin visits and so forth. But that's pretty much it. Russia is doing things secretly, but it's doing them. And I think it's time to expose some of those things and tell you what really is going on. And where do I start? Boy, oh boy, where do I start? Well, let's start with Vladimir Putin. 2 things you need to know, I think. Number 1, by judging how Putin has behaved in the last 29 months since he ordered to attack Ukraine, there has been 2 distinct periods. There have been 2 distinct periods. From February of 2022 to July 2023, and from then up until now. No, I am not talking that there have been 2 different Putins, 3 different Putins, doubles or whatever. I don't know that. I don't know anything about that. And I don't think that anyone really does. For simplicity's sake, let's imagine it's one man, real Putin. And in the first 12 months, after he made the decision to invade Ukraine, he disappeared from the public eye. For the most part. It was the period of great uncertainty for the country, for him. No one really understood much in the beginning. Okay, it was a crazy decision to attack Ukraine, and everyone woke up with that decision told. Ukrainians were attacked, killed, bombed, and Russians just didn't know what to do next, basically. So things got really, really uncertain in the late summer of 2022 for Russia. More certain for Ukraine, much less certain for Russia. The West started supplying weapons to Ukraine. I believe HIMARS weapon systems have landed in Ukraine in July. And Russian advancement in Ukraine all of a sudden stopped, just like that. Moreover, Ukrainians kicked Russian army out of Kharkiv and Kherson. I think you all remember that. And they kept on pushing. And then there were talks about big Ukrainian advancement. In the following months. So, and Putin disappeared. Yes, Putin disappeared. Most likely, he was sitting deep down underneath one of his homes, scared, not knowing what to do, trying to figure things out. His plans that I think that he had made before, they were just folding, plan after plan after plan. At the same time, Dmitry Peskov would go out in public and would calm everyone down, saying, "Don't worry, everything is going according to the plan." Well, if you hear something from Peskov's mouth, that means that exactly the opposite is happening in reality. So Putin he kind of disappeared. Okay, of course, he did show up here and there, but it was nothing major. And at that period, Russia internationally did zero. It ejected itself from international politics, basically. It negotiated with China, with India, but all negotiations were concerning the war, concerning weapons supply, things like that, it's just the war in Ukraine to get by. Other than that, there was zero activity. Zero international missions, contacts, agreements, zilch. Putin, for the most part, what appears to, he stopped paying attention to anything outside Russia, not concerning the war with Ukraine. He even, for the most part, ignored everyone inside Russia. He skipped the address to the Federal Assembly in December. He skipped the direct telephone line. The entire country could ask questions, and he would answer. He usually does it in late December. And the federal address to the Federal Assembly, he is obliged to do once a year by Russian Constitution. Well, he just ignored. He didn't explain anything. A few officials inside the Kremlin, the insiders, said unofficially, of course, that there was nothing to tell to Russian people, to anyone, in December. Things were going so bad for Putin, for his plan for the country, that there was nothing to tell. And I believe that. There was nothing to tell back then. Putin avoided being seen by anyone. He looked sad, he looked depressed, from the few pictures that they showed us. Everyone back then had a gut feeling that Russia would not last long. The worst was in June of 2023. We all remember what happened. Well, first, the war started happening on Russian land. First, Belgorod was shelled in May, and it was a huge shock for everyone. How is this possible? This is Russia. They can't do that. The war cannot be happening on Russian land. We invaded Ukraine just for the purpose to make Russia more secure. And Belgorod is being attacked, a major Russian city, Belgorod. So everyone was shocked. There was a raid of the armed forces into the Belgorod. And, of course, there were drone attacks in Moscow. My apartment in Moscow was nearly hit. They missed by 50 meters, okay? It hit a different apartment. It was a wave after wave after wave in May, okay? And Putin disappeared completely, and there was a clear understanding that he was losing power. He was becoming weaker, okay? And then something was up in the air. And, of course, June 24th happened. Private Army Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, he decided to topple Putin down. He announced the Justice March. and he went to Moscow, and he almost made it. He was almost successful. And of course, Putin negotiated, offered him something, and the Prigozhin was killed 2 months later. But that was the worst point, the lowest point, okay? And then tide changed. It turned in about time when Prigozhin was killed. Putin kind of announced that he was back on the scene. He sent his enemies, whoever was thinking of taking him down or whatever, he sent a message. See what happens to people who openly stand against me. And then the process of presidential elections started, the preparation for the presidential elections started happening. And Putin started showing up more and more. He came back to life. He resurrected. He started appearing on TV, making speeches, addressing people, addressing senators. He was back. He was back in the informational space. He started talking to other countries' leaders. So I want you to know that. That was number one. Number two, Putin currently holds absolute power in Russia. The vertical of power he's created, it's serving him. He is on the very top. He is number one and only. He's the monarch. He's the czar. He makes or approves all key decisions in Russia. It is safe to say that he's in charge of Russia's geopolitical game also. And Russia is back playing that game. I would like to start talking about that game. But before I move there, once again, I'd like to thank you, all those of you who turn in to watch my shows every day, the sponsors, the patrons, those who bought me coffees at buymeacoffee.com. Friends, your support shows me that you value my work highly, and please know that it's the most powerful positive feedback I can get. It inspires, gives me energy, it gives me strength to move forward. It empowers me. Thank you so much. It just tells me that I do something right when I see your support. Thank you very much. So I want you to not underestimate Russia and Vladimir Putin. I think I'm seeing that it is a mistake that a lot of people have been making over the past couple years. I'm stressing that because many people all over the world are underestimating, in my opinion. Many are not aware what Russia has been doing. Many people are thinking tactically. They're thinking the war in Ukraine, the front lines, what's happening today, tomorrow, perhaps in a couple of months from now, what's happening inside Russian economy today, what will happen in a few months, and so forth. I call this tactical thinking. And Putin now is back to thinking strategically about Ukraine, about global security, and about everything else. In order to understand the bigger picture, think long term. What Putin is doing now, he didn't start doing yesterday, okay? That has been a long-term game. It started, my estimation is around 2005, 2006. What's happened recently? This game has intensified, and some immediate goals changed. That we're seeing right now. I divide countries that Russia tries to influence into two categories. I call the first one Tier 1 countries, where Russia exerts direct influence and takes actions through proxies or directly. Category number two, I call them Tier 2 countries. Russia tries to win them over, influence, or convert into its allies. The first category, Moldova, Armenia, Georgia, Serbia, Cuba, the countries of Central Asia, and Venezuela to some extent. Second category, that's a much broader category. The countries of BRICS, Brazil, India, China, and South America, the countries of the Latin America, the countries of former USSR that I did not mention in Tier 1, Hamas, India, China, the countries of Europe, the countries of Middle East, and the USA too. You surprised that there are so many countries that I named? Well, remember the USSR. Them bringing the USSR back means not only planned economy, destruction of personal freedoms inside the country in poverty. It also means the Kremlin tries to spread its ideology throughout the world. Ideology? Well, we all know what Soviet ideology was. Communism. The USSR was trying to spread communism all over the world. But we aren't aware of new Russia's ideology, right? What is it? Like market economy that Russia claims it has? Like Putinism? Whatever it is. Well, actually, there is the new ideology. It's called, well, I call it anti-colonialism and multipolar world. We've been hearing it in Russia over and over again. The New World Order, really, that's what it is. And Russia wants to create a place in this New World Order for itself because it's been kicked out of the old world order, the current one that exists. Russia has been isolated and that's it. It's out of the picture. So it's trying to create a new one. Smart. Straight out of a KGB playbook. So what techniques does Russia use? 3 main techniques that I'm aware of. Number 1, destroy what was created by others. Number 2, spread lies, flood everything with false information. And number 3, create equivalent between things that they're very different. Now let me go with the countries in more detail, in a bit more detail. You know, I'm gonna tell you what's going on in every country, very, very in a nutshell. And a disclaimer here: I'm not an expert on geopolitics. Okay, I'm just an observer. I observe what's going on inside Russia, and things fall, onto my radar. I observe also what Russia is doing to the outside world. The following is the big picture. I'm getting put in small mosaic pieces together. And I'll start with Tier 2 countries. First, a very important region that kind of popped up on the map, a geopolitical map of Russia recently, is the countries in the African continent. There are so many of them to mention, but they are very important. Russia started looking at those countries about 15 years ago. In 2010, Private Army Wagner was created by Yevgeny Prigozhin, a personal cook of Vladimir Putin. What turned out to be that was a personal army of Vladimir Putin. And the goal of creating that army, which was absolutely illegal under Russian laws, because one of the federal laws of Russia stated that no private army could ever be created in Russia. And none yet ЧВК Wagner was created, so they changed legislation to cater this situation later. So Russia started looking to exert its influence in the African countries, and it needed one thing: resources. I also have this theory, I'm not sure if it's right or not, but I think that Vladimir Putin was thinking of way out, a plan B or plan C, so to speak. There are a lot of rumors that Nazi Germany leaders fled to Latin American countries, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, I don't know, countries like that. So I'm thinking that ЧВК Wagner, the private army Wagner, was one that perhaps had one of the goals to establish a hideout, to establish a place when, if thing in Russia would go sour, then the Vladimir Putin would jump on a plane and just be off. Okay, that's just a theory. Okay, and of course now it's different. Now it's impossible. But back then in 2010, hey, why not? But the main goal of establishing itself in Africa was to get hold of resources. Africa is the richest continent in resources, and it's controlled by local groups, local dictators, small countries, breakaway regions, that type of thing. The region is not stable. So Russia sent a bunch of goons, armed, well-trained, and it started taking over resources. It started working for dictators, working independently, and after the war in Ukraine happened, and Russia has been kicked out of pretty much everywhere. Okay, I think that Putin came up with this brilliant idea of the global South, and Africa is the cornerstone of this global South. So the global South is the region of the world that stands against colonialism, okay, and wants a multipolar world. And Putin has been trying to sell this idea to the leaders of different French countries and has been backing his negotiations with raw power, with Wagner, whatever is left of Wagner. And there are things left, because in Mali there was a huge clash and dozens Wagner group goons were attacked and killed. And I believe that a local tribe called Tuaregs, they captured a few of them, they sold. Just today the Wagner troops came back, and we kind of forgotten about Wagner in this year, but it's still alive and well, and it's in Africa, and it's still in operations. So Putin is trying to establish himself as a player in African countries. We also see that quite a few African dictators traveled to Russia. Russia has conducted a forum, an international event, well, really an African event, where it invited leaders of African countries last year. And Putin has been trying to establish himself as ally and influencer in Africa. And he takes actions, has taken quite a few actions, and he has succeeded. One of the African countries shook off French influence. France has been historically strong in the region, and now Russia is winning in some parts. The game is still going on. The countries of BRICS, again, the BRICS is the international organization created about 14 years ago, I believe. It's decoded as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. BRICS has been an organization, an international organization. It's been making waves. What Putin has been trying to do lately, to use BRICS countries to create a mechanism of circumventing sanctions that the entire world has placed Russia onto Russia. For example, there has been talks about creating a unified payment system. The biggest problem right now Russia is facing is it cannot transfer money to anywhere, not accepted. India and China are not accepting Russian money. Therefore, nothing can be shipped to Russia, and that's it. Russia doesn't produce much, and this situation is not looking very well. It's a catastrophe right now. For the past 2 weeks, Russia has been completely isolated financially. Okay, and I'll be covering that more often in the future. Please keep on tuning in. And Putin has been trying to use this partnership of countries to circumvent sanctions and to beef up Russia economically. There are meetings. There are numerous events under the name of the BRICS, international games, sports games, the games of the future, forums, the aerospace club, and so forth. They flood information space with this news coming from the BRICS organization. And of course, they've been trying to get new members. They're trying like crazy. Now, moving on to the countries of Latin America. The USSR established influence in Latin America, and basically what it did, it staged coup d'etats, it financed local guerrillas, and they just would overthrow elected governments. Okay, that was the tactic the communists used. Well, it hasn't gotten that bad now, but what Russia is doing in Latin America is different. Okay, it's pushing its informational power. Russia has a propaganda outlet called Russia Today, the RT, and it's been growing in the countries of Latin America very, very rapidly. And it's delivering information, well, propaganda information, of what it wants to deliver to condition the people of those countries. And it's doing it quite effectively. Okay, it's financed by Russian government, of course. And it's a success so far. The audience is growing, and RT announces every 3 or 4 months of new markets, new TV stations that start translate, and so forth. By the way, I covered a few news about RT growing in Latin America in the last in the live streams in the past. So please tune into those. So the next is Hamas. Oh boy, Hamas. Hamas is a friend of Russia. The terrorist organization is responsible for attacking Israel, for killing 1,600 Israelis, for seeding instability in the region, for starting the war. And it looks like Hamas coordinates, if not all, but a lot of its actions with the Kremlin. Why? What makes me say that? Because Hamas officials, highest officials, travel to Moscow. They've traveled a few times, and they traveled, I believe, in late September or early October, right before they staged this attack on Israel and killed so many people. So basically, why did they come to Kremlin? Most likely to get approval, most likely to ask for financing. Well, it's just thinking. This is not fact, but why else would they go? Okay? To coordinate, to get approval, perhaps to get advice, things like that, because perhaps to discuss the future plans. And Hamas keeps on traveling to Moscow. Hamas keeps talking to the Russians. It's definitely the steps that Russian government, Putin, they have been taking. So moving to the countries of the Middle East, those countries are really hard to do business with. They have the mind of their own, and they play on everyone's side and at the same time on no one's side. And Russia has definitely been trying to break the ice. Putin officially flew to Saudi Arabia. He officially flew to, with official visit, he flew to Abu Dhabi. He's talked, he's walked, he's shaken hands, he smiled, he dined, perhaps whined, I don't know. But Middle East is very important because it controls world's oil supplies. Therefore, Vladimir Putin wants to be in the know, okay? Not much he can destruct in the Middle East. Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, but he definitely wants to be on the inside. Okay, he knows that he needs that to try to control oil prices, or at least to be in the game. Now, let's get to a more interesting part of the world, Europe. Europe can be divided into two parts: the proxies of Russia and those, the evil West, the Anglo-Saxons. The proxies of Russia are Hungary and Serbia. Serbia has historically been very close to Russia, and Serbian government extradites Russian citizens who reside in Serbia at the request of Russian government, deports them to Russia. And Serbian battalion officially is fighting on the Russian side in Ukraine. So the countries, it's safe to say that, it's my opinion, but I think that is true. It's safe to say that the special services of both countries are in contact, close contact. And of course, there's Hungary, a member of the European Union, and it's run by a fellow named Orban, the president, well, the leader of the country. He is democratically elected, so he's one of the European leaders. But then he's been playing his own game. He's been planting seeds of chaos in Europe. That's what I would say. He's been blocking sanctions. He's been blocking. He blocked sanctions in the past. He blocked NATO expansion. He blocked supplies of weapons to Ukraine. He blocked key decisions that the European countries were making on Russia and on Ukraine. Then he traveled to different countries. Lately he's been trying to portray himself as an intermediary. He traveled to Moscow without permission of the European Union, so that's definitely a proxy of Russia. And then there are countries like Germany, the UK, who are on the other side, who Russia is called the unfriendlies, and Dmitry Medvedev called insignificants. What's going on there is Russia is trying to interfere informationally in those countries, seeding seeds of uncertainty inside people's heads. What appears to be Russia has a large network of spies who act on behalf of Russian state, who provide information, sometimes false, sometimes real, who they're in Europe. I think their best. Their best strategy is creating false equivalence between different things, absolutely different, incomparable. Okay. And of course, there has been very strange activities in, for example, Germany, in France. Things get blown up there very suspiciously. People, someone tries to assassinate decision makers. Rheinmetall, that's a huge company that produces weapons and that supplies them to Ukraine. The CEO of a plot was uncovered by both Americans and the Germans that someone tried to assassinate the CEO, and they linked the assassination attempt to Russia. Also, very odd, things explode at large enterprises in Germany. For example, yesterday was an explosion at a bass factory. That's odd. Okay, all those factories, they are part of military-industrial complex. They are in the supply and chain link, odd, very odd. And then, for example, take France. that when the Olympics was just about to be open, there was an accident with a train, and hundreds of thousands of people were stuck, couldn't travel. Okay, that was quite a bit of chaos. And I'm sure if we dig deeper, we'll find different examples as well. Now, India. India is a very difficult country to to be partners with, okay, because they have the mind of their own. But Russia has been making attempts, and the latest attempt, Indian President, Prime Minister Modi, flew to Moscow and visited Putin at his house, and they just spent time like they were the best friends. Perhaps they're the best friends, I don't know. But I showed it in the last Friday news update, I believe, like 10 days ago. So check it out if you would like to learn more. Russia has been having problems with India. It's not an easy country to communicate. India is a partner of the United States also, and India maneuvers between everyone. Okay, India is not friends with China. China, I cannot say that Russia has been trying to influence China. No, I think that Russia has been asking China for favors, begging for help, things like that. But then Russia is too small to influence China. And Russian leadership is too dumb and too inexperienced compared to the Chinese leadership. Okay, China influences Russia. China is calling the shots in Russia. China is making Russia vassal state. That's not the other way around. But Russia tries to negotiate at least something out of China. It needs, definitely, desperately needs to import goods made in China, cars, consumer goods, and to export something. Oil, natural gas, which Russia has not been succeeding, especially in gas. But, it's a constant process of negotiations. Vladimir Putin flew to China twice. The Chinese leader flew to Russia once. They're in contact. That's a very tough position for Russia. And the USA. Well, how does Russia influence the USA? What does it do inside the USA? Friends, that's easy. There was a huge investigation. It lasted for a few years. Russian influence. The fact is that there was influence uncovered, not at the magnitude that it had been previously thought, but still, different fake news agencies registered in the United States, financed by Russia. Fake news, defamation of political candidates. This is how Russia tried and perhaps still tries to influence America and American public. Okay, I think that America is important because Russia wants to destabilize the country. Okay, and then it wants to spread false information. It certainly doesn't do any physical actions there. Okay, but it does work informationally. I've covered quite a few news of what Russia does in other countries. Sometimes I catch Russia by its hand, caught red-handed. And then I cover it in the news available to patrons of Inside Russia. Every single day I carefully select and post 9 news that I find important with my commentaries and analysis. And sometimes among those news, not just Inside Russia news that happen in the country, but what Russia does with and to other countries as well. So having access to those news will keep you informed on everything you want to know about Russia, but were afraid to ask. So become Patreon at patreon.com and get access to news that matter. I'm going to place links down below after this live stream is over. So check them out. And then I move to the most important countries. I think most important because they're tier 1 countries where Russia exerts direct influence to. They are Moldova, Armenia, Georgia, Cuba, the countries of the Central Asia, such as Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Venezuela to some extent. Well, perhaps Serbia too, but I'm not sure whether it's a tier 1 or tier 2 country. It's somewhere in between. So the most important countries here, by far, are Armenia and Georgia. Okay, and we see the real results of Russian policy, not hypothetical actions and hypothetical results in the future, but we're talking about Armenia and Georgia. We will see what Russia has done, what it has reached already. Okay, Moldova, it's a country right next to Romania, and right next to European Union, right next to Ukraine. And Moldova has been a Russian interest since the USSR fell apart, since 1991. One of the regions of Moldova broke away or tried to break away, and there was a local war, and Russia entered and what it claimed to have a peacekeeping operation, and it established a military base. It's still there for over 3 decades now. Moldova has been desperately, it's a small but proud and free country. I respect Moldova very much. It has been trying to become a part of the European Union. And it has been taking steps. Moldovan president, a wonderful young lady, her name is Sandu. She's tough. She's very good. And she's been taking real steps to become part of the European Union. Russia absolutely hates that. It hates the fact that Moldova would just get out of its influence and exit the sphere of influence of Russia. So Russia has also taken steps about Moldova. It created an organization, Moldovan government in exile, so to speak, the politicians of Moldova. It staged the conference, and of course it happened in Moscow, okay? And the Moldovan government in exile was born. It's financed by Moscow. It is in Moscow. Most live in Moscow, most politicians. And Moldova is investigating criminally those that took part into that in that meeting. So Moldova is the hot war right now, okay? Because the timeline is it wants to become a part of, well, at least to get approved very soon, within a year or so. And Russia definitely is trying to not to let Moldova get away from influence. So now Cuba. Why am I saying Cuba? Cuba is far away, but Cuba is was a close friend and ally, and I'd say vassal state of the USSR when Fidel Castro was alive. Cuba was hugely important because of its proximity to the United States. Russia had a large military base, and it was eavesdropping on the U.S. telecommunications from there. And then it left Cuba in the 90s. Or perhaps in 2003, I'm not sure. But left long time ago. But now, Cuba is back into the interests of Russia. And definitely the connection has been established. Some money was given to Cuba. It's not Fidel Castro anymore. It's not even his brother. But Cuba is still Cuba. And lately, a couple Russian military vessels entered Cuban harbor in Havana and were placed there. And it infuriated many Americans. Even Donald Trump said that, he wouldn't allow that. I think Joseph Biden also made a very firm official statement. Anyway, that was a good show when American politicians came to one conclusion. They became bipartisan. Okay, and then they said, oh, we need Russia out of there. Because, say, Havana is 90 miles off the coast of Florida, not even 90 kilometers, 60 miles. So it was pretty interesting moment. So, but that sign was a tour de force to show the United States that, hey, Cuba is still a part of our influence, and if anything, we can use Cuba for our base, okay? Now we move to Venezuela. Very difficult country to negotiate. Venezuela was, I can't say it was a vassal state, but it depended on Russia a great deal, and Russia was helping. The reason I placed it in the tier 1 category, where Russia exerts direct influence, is because Russian company Rosneft entered Venezuelan market, invested lots of money there, and has forces on the ground in Cuba. Therefore, has direct influence. Maduro, president, has been maneuvering. Well, he's been on the Russian side, under Russia, for all those years. But then lately, he started talking to the United States of America, okay? And I see that as maneuvering, trying to break away from Russia, trying to negotiate some kind of pardon from the United States, trying to establish closer relations to the United States. It's a sign that Venezuela is not that simple country for Russia. But Russia still keeps on trying. It still has boots on the ground there. It exerts influence. And Venezuela needs Russia, to scare the United States that if we don't make a deal with you, we'll go back to Vladimir Putin. Okay, then the countries of the Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and to some extent Kazakhstan. Well, Kazakhstan is a part of a trade union with Russia. Belarus, Kazakhstan, a couple more countries. It's an independent country that is leaning towards China now. So I'll leave it for now out of this conversation. And I'll tell you a few things about Uzbekistan. Is fairly independent country, and it's like Venezuela. It's been maneuvering between the United States and Russia, and now there's the third body in this theorem, and then the third unknown in this equation is China. So Uzbekistan has more places to maneuver. Why is it a tier 1 country? Because Russia is present here. Vladimir Putin travels to Uzbekistan. Uzbek president travels to Russia. Russia sells natural gas to Uzbekistan. It needs lots of natural gas because Uzbekistan sells its own gas to China. So there are plans. I know there are people here from Russia who have established offices. There's trade export agency, financing different manufacturers of equipment here in Uzbekistan. If a Russian company wants to sell its equipment, let's say transformers or whatever they produce, not much, but they produce something. So it uses Russian government money to basically, Russians paying the credit, not the Uzbeks. There are lots of companies, small companies that help Russia to circumvent Western sanctions. That's why Uzbekistan is a very important country, and that's a large country with a large economy. Now, if we're talking about Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, very important countries because, as you know, there's a huge catastrophe in Russia right now with labor force. Not enough people. People were killed in Ukraine, mobilized fighting now, maimed. Those of us, myself personally, and 3 million like me have fled Russia. So not too many people left in a labor force. So let's put it this way. Many people left, but it's taken a huge blow. And then Russia is trying to bring migrant workers from Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. So these countries are hugely important. And if for some reason Russia fails, economic problem there will grow even worse. And that's one of the fundamental problems, Transaction with China is one, inflation is number two, and number three is labor force shortages. So that's why these countries are hugely important. And two last countries, Armenia and Georgia. Georgia is actually a showcase of what Russia can do, has been trying to do, and will do if allowed. And Armenia is the example of where Russia failed. Georgia, well, it had a revolution, bloodless, fantastic revolution back in 2003. It was the revolution of the roses, that's what they called. And basically, old Soviet boss Eduard Shevardnadze had been the president of Georgia for 14 years, 13 years. And then people decided they just all took it to the streets and they threw him out. There were president election held, and a fellow named Mikhail Saakashvili won the elections. He was educated in the United States. He was a good fellow, okay, and then he brought democratic principles to Georgia, and he basically turned Georgia around. He rebuilt it. Georgia was a sad side in the 90s, but then it just resurrected. It came back from the ashes. I visited Georgia in 2014. I love the country. I love people. I love everything about Georgia. Very nice, sovereign, very little bureaucracy. Part of Europe, really. And that's where the Georgians were trying to get into, to European Union. And guess what? They were not allowed. Because Russia didn't want to have Georgia out of its influence. So it sent its agent, KGB agent, a long time ago, and he established himself ethnically Georgian. And he's been growing as a political figure. He created a political party. He's well-financed from Russia. Well, I can't say that. That's a rumor, but he's well-financed, let's put it this way, okay, from somewhere I don't know. They've been trying to destroy democratic initiatives. And the latest and the biggest blow to Georgia has been the law on the foreign agents. The law on the foreign agents, that's where Russia started. It was step number one of losing freedoms for people. Okay, basically, if anyone receives money from abroad, person can be named a foreign agent under influence of a different country, a foreign country, and cut in rights. And of course, this political agent law is politically motivated, and Georgians didn't have that until recently. And this pro-Russian political party, they control the government, they control the parliament, they introduced this law, and thousands and tens of thousands of Georgians took it to the streets again. In the news, in news updates, in the crazy news, in the Patreon, I gave you the information about protests in Georgia, and they lasted for a long time, and they were pretty brutal. There were brutal crashes with the cops who were trying to crash the protesters. And guess what? At the end, pro-Russian political party won. They made this law, the foreign agent law, the federal law. So it is legal now for the government to go after people it doesn't like. And of course, Georgia was on the way of becoming the European Union along with Moldova. And of course, the Europeans said, look, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. We will not accept you with this law, okay? And the whole reason for this law to be introduced and made a reality, sponsored by Russia, was to destroy this process of Georgia becoming part of the European Union. The people of Georgia have lost. But they weren't against, their politicians or whatever. They were against Russia. Russia won. And this is what kind of influence it exerts to other countries, okay? Georgia is becoming a part, it's slowly drifting, moving into the influence of Russia, into the sphere of influence. So this is what Russia is doing. This is the result, tangible result we can touch, see, And Armenia is a very opposite example. Armenia has broken away from Russian influence. Armenia was not helped when it needed to be helped. Azerbaijan started the war with Armenia, and it took back Nagorno-Karabakh, part of Armenia that had been a part of Azerbaijan before. And basically, Armenia was an official ally, a member of a military union with Russia. And as soon as Azerbaijan attacked, Russia had to bring troops and help out Armenia. It didn't. And that was, there was a different deal made. As Recep Erdogan, Turkish president, said, it turns out it wasn't the Azerbaijan who entered Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, but it was him. He said, I made that decision. Azerbaijan is under me. Okay, so basically Putin made the deal with Erdogan. And I think that it has something to do with circumventing sanctions and so forth, So basically Putin sold Armenia to Turkey. And Armenia decided that it was going to leave the military union with Russia. And, it's turning to the West, basically. Bit by bit, the current Armenian president is turning to the West. And that is an example of how Russian influence can be fought off. Well, it kind of gives hope for other countries too. So Armenia, awesome. You go, Armenians. I want to remind you that Vladimir Putin is very good. He's evil, but he's very good. 25 years he has been manipulating Russian politics. Not just manipulating, has completely overtaken Russian politics. He has built a new system called the vertical of power that caters to him. They've made him the czar. He is good. He is evil, but he's master manipulator. He knows well because he was educated in the KGB, okay, and then he served as spy in Germany, East Germany. I want to tell you that what's happening now was not created or invented by Russians now. It was created, these rules, guidelines were created in the USSR a long time ago. Basically what Putin did, he's doing what he knows best, what he does best, what he was taught back in the 70s when he was attending all different KGB programs, okay? He is doing what he knows best. And he's very sufficient at that. He's very effective because he has an entire resource, the huge, an unlimited amount of resources for that. That is Russia, with its riches, with its budgets. Yes, economy is not doing well, but you know what? He'll introduce a new law. He will take away from people more, but then he will have enough money to influence Moldova, to destabilize the United States, Georgia, Venezuela, whatever you name it, okay? Because that is a priority. I want you to understand that. I want to know that, and I want you to see that, because your country is a target. Unstoppable, he will continue destabilizing. He will continue making lives in many countries much worse, okay? Can he win? No. Because he's not big enough, he's not strong enough, and he's not that smart, okay? But he definitely can do the damage. And I think in some countries damage has been done, and he can do more. Please be aware and don't let him succeed. Thank you, friends. Thank you so much. Very long message. I apologize, but that's a very long topic. I would like to turn the live stream chat on, we won't have much time, obviously, about 10-15 minutes or so. Before that, just a couple words. I made a very controversial live stream yesterday. Well, shouldn't say controversial. A live stream on a topic that I usually don't talk about. I talked about American politics, and I am asking people not to discuss American politics here. It was a one-time event. Why did I do that? Because I feel it is very important to show people what I see. And I see that some situation in the United States is a repeating situation that happened in Russia in 1999. And in the live stream, I certainly did not compare Kamala Harris to Vladimir Putin. In no way. I made sure that I said quite a few times that I do not compare. I do not talk about personal qualities and stuff like that. So I did not discuss Harris. I did not discuss Biden, Putin, Trump, God forbid, and the reaction, I simply, showed what I am seeing right now, what's happening. Okay. So the reaction's been overwhelming. A lot of people sent me messages with lots of stuff like, you don't know crap about American politics, or just shut up and concentrate on Russia and things like that. A lot of people unsubscribed. And it seems like, everyone missed my point. Perhaps it's my English, perhaps it's I failed to explain this, but I did not talk about Harris. I did not talk about the, current president. I did not talk about Trump. And I'm not in a position to talk about them, but I just explained what I saw happened in Russia 25 years ago and the science of what's happening. Quite a few messages, emails I received. The hate emails, there are quite a few of them. A few emails, people actually tried to explain, they understood, and they were saying that, Konstantin, we have no time. We're Democrat, and please understand that Democrats have no time. There are only a couple months left before the election. We need to move quick. That's why we're cutting corners and so forth. And that's exactly my point. If you have electoral institution, you cannot cut corners. You have to stick to the law. But anyway, so I just wanted to let you know that I am puzzled by why people don't understand me, don't want to listen, and some people just look at the thumbnail and I assume that I'm gonna say something, and they start sending me messages. That is amusing. Okay, so thank you so much. I would like to turn on the live stream chat on, not for long, because we're out of time. And this message could not be broken into parts because I simply don't know how to do that. I'm sorry, friends. I can't do that. I'm pretty bad at breaking messages into parts and delivering them. So I'm sorry. As usual, for those of you who are here for the very first time, I'd like to acknowledge that we have the best moderators in the world here. Lorna, Mami K, Dirk, Bob S, Harry Potnan, and Amir Fazad. Thank you, friends, for coming. And the usual suspects. Those who came to see, those who are in the chat, thank you so very much, because I've heard quite bad stuff about myself in the last 24 hours. What puzzles me really is that, please, I don't want to discuss that situation, just, let's just move forward. Please, don't. If I had a choice, I'd do that again, because I don't think I did anything bad. The message is sincere, okay, and the signs are there. I listen to American political scientists who are concerned about the same thing. Is that I'm not the only one. I didn't make that stuff up. And I heard political scientists who are Democrats who are not, concerned, very concerned. So I would do the same message again, despite that so many people unsubscribe from the channel. But hey, I'm not a marketologist. I don't cater messages to people. If I did, I wouldn't be Konstantinov Inside Russia. I'd be a different YouTubers. YouTubers usually do. They find topics that they think audience will like. I don't do that. I find the message that I think that is important to share with you. So, thank you. As usual, please put your messages in caps and highlight them in orange if you would like me to notice them easier. Just like Bob S. did. Thank you, Bob. Baker Stokes, Sam K, VJ John, John McLean, Frank, Amir, Dirk, Lorna, Mami, Andrew from South Africa, Harry, Tim, Scott Nesbitt, Northern Grace, good to see you, Petra Olson, Terry, can Russia find a financial system that will work with it? Terry, right now, your question is spot on. Right now, there's a huge problem because now problems began on the first day of 2024. Turkey stopped transactioning with Russia, and it's really difficult. From what I understand, you cannot send any money to Turkey. You cannot receive anything to Turkey directly from Turkey. You need to establish a chain of different companies, let's say in the US, not US, British Virgin Islands, or perhaps Cyprus, or perhaps Barbados, or something like that, the offshore zone. Then you need to set up a company in Kyrgyzstan, in Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. It's a link, chain of companies. And you move money from Russia, not to Turkey, but let's say to Cyprus, and from Cyprus it goes to, I don't know, Kazakhstan, from Kazakhstan, and finally it reaches destination in Turkey that cannot be traced, the origin of Russia. It's costly and it takes time, okay? It increases the price of whatever you buy. And then same thing, you send it to one country, then to another, and then it takes a very long time, okay? This problem with Turkey is not the worst because the most international trade is done with China. And China stopped working with Russia on the 14th of February. That's Chinese New Year. And first, big banks quit. But still, it was possible to move money to China using small banks who were not afraid of the sanctions that much. They just charged a great fee, a large fee for their services. But then in the last 2 weeks, China has been closed. No small or big banks because the United States has been pushing real hard on China. And Russia is trying to find a new system, anything, a barter system. It needs to get money to China somehow. And it can't. It's huge, huge problem. We have a wave of Russians coming to Uzbekistan, like, those dogs who search for game, and they ask everyone, how can you do this? Can you do that? How can you work with China? So I've never seen anything like that in 2 years. Okay, it's really, really bad. No, Russia has not found a financial system it can work with. Dennis Montes, howdy, Portugal. Kamo, as Russian, can you reveal your opinion on the Olympic ceremony? I'm Christian. I'm confused, okay? I'm Christian as Christian, not as Russian, okay? But it's just a guy, a father of 5, a husband, a son, a Christian. I have my set of values, and when I saw kind of puzzled me. I don't know what to tell you. That the guy was standing with his genitals hanging out, and then the entire world could see that. Well, I've been to France many times. I didn't see anything like that there, okay? And then there's the night before Jesus was crucified, he had a dinner with everyone. I don't know how you call it in English. Tайная вечеря, okay? So, and then they tried to reproduce that in the most, in a way that I didn't understand, okay? So, I don't know what to tell you. I'm confused, okay? So, I don't have my opinion. I don't really want to watch anything from there. That's all. Fan funding. Thank you, friends. Petra Olson, thank you so much for hugs from Sweden. Thank you. Put in like and heart. Sheer Leaf, thank you. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Santi Prieto, thank you. Buy yourself nice cappuccino. Tomorrow morning will do. Can you explain the Wagner hideout a little more and that Putin could flee there? Was that situation uncertain back then? Good question. I'll do that now. Looks like we don't have much time, but I will do that. Thank you for sharing your ideas. Thank you, Jack. Thank you so much. Sam, is it true that pigeons are smarter than Mr. Putin? Well, Mr. Putin is a very smart man. Evil, but smart. He's rose on top. Moreover, he's been on top for 25 years now, and that's not a joke, my friend. You know, he is in the cohort of the most successful dictators the human history. Okay, he's definitely moving up. Okay, the only guy better than him right now is Lukashenko. Has been longer in power since '94, and another African guy, like brutal dictator since like 1984. So anyway, hideout, Wagner hideout. It is my theory that Putin created ЧВК Wagner, the private army, that he could control through proxy, through Prigozhin, to explore opportunities, resources to make a buck or two. And of course, the private army was supported by FSB and by the Russian army, okay? So that was a fraud in the first place, okay? And then, why not? It's always nice to have a plan B. If things go sour, you just hop on the plane and on two planes. One plane is filled with gold, another plane is filled with you and your family and friends, and you fly someplace far away. But then the war in Ukraine started, everything changed. Before, Putin was not wanted anywhere by international law enforcement agencies, by The Hague, and so forth. Ukraine changed everything. Now Putin is wanted, and Putin is a very desirable guest in any countries such as the United States, in the Western countries. And that option is off limits for Putin right now. He cannot flee Russia whatsoever, because even if he does in secret, where can he go to? The only countries that would allow him is North Korea, Venezuela, and I think that's it. Well, imagine if he flies to Venezuela. Imagine he has a castle there, a nice compound built, tons of buildings, a bunker, anything that money can buy, right? He has 3 trucks full of gold. He has, secret bank accounts. So he lands to Venezuela with his bodyguards, plenty of bodyguards, okay? He is the czar. He is it of Russia. Who is he in Venezuela? For his bodyguards, he's just a regular guy who pays them salary. If they conspire, they're Praetorians. They could just go and take the money themselves. They know where the gold is, and just flee, What keeps them in Venezuela? Nothing. That's one possibility. But what is more likely possibility is that when Putin flies there, Maduro welcomes, says, "Oh, Vladimir, I've been waiting for you so long." So Maduro says, "I want you to be safe in my country." So here's a bunch of bodyguards, like 1,000 bodyguards, and they're gonna encircle you and keep everyone out. So what really means they're gonna keep Putin in. Because the second he lands into Venezuela, North Korea, whatever, he is at mercy of the local power, of the local enforcement, of the local authority, okay? And the first thing that what Maduro would do, he would ring up Washington and say, "Hey, can I get the president? And guys, get on the speakerphone because I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to believe. You know, you're going to fall off your chairs. And I got to see you right away. I'm flying over. I'm on the way to Washington." They're like, where? He goes, "Trust me, you want to see me." And then he comes and says, "Okay, I have Putin for you." They're like, "No way." Yep, Putin, he is in prison. He's encircled by my guards. What can you give me for him? Said, "Maduro, you are forgiven. We're going to send you to California and give you a mansion and you're going to spend the rest of your days there." He goes, I wanted that. Thank you so much. You know, when they make a deal and they pardon Maduro and he flies to the United States, runs away from Venezuelans who are angry, who destroyed Venezuela, really, you know, with Hugo Chavez. And, you know, he lives peacefully ever after. And then Vladimir, the last thing happens is that all the bodyguards, so his family, himself, they're just handcuffed by Maduro's bodyguards, or Americans walk in and like, "Vladimir, we've been waiting for you for so long." So I think that this is not a plan B, C, or whatever anymore for Putin. He understands that. He knows that. He cannot step outside Russia because he becomes an asset. A very valuable asset, and he would be sold in seconds, just like that. Mac, thank you so much. There's a big difference between the Americans and the Russians. Americans have no tradition of suffering. If they don't like something, they grab their weapons and fight for themselves. Thank you so much, my friend. Agreed. And so... thank you so much. Caesars, I might have a stream on that. Thank you. Friends, I'd like to finish the live stream. Sorry, my message was very long. I apologize. I'll try to make tomorrow easier to digest and shorter message. So thank you so much. I would like to invite everyone to pray along with me. Thank you so much. Let's do it. Dear Lord Jesus Christ, thank you so much for giving us this life. Thank you for giving us food on our tables and putting roofs over our heads. Thank you for surrounding us with people who we love and who love us. Dear Lord, please give us wisdom to keep the skies above our children's heads safe and peaceful, and raise them in a way that when they grow up, they will never fight in any wars, only love each other, and make this world a better place. For now, please keep our children healthy and safe. Please stop the bloodshed in Ukraine. Reach out and touch the hearts of those who are capable of making that decision. Wake them up. Remind them that they're still human beings and they still have love in their hearts, so they stop the bloodshed. Please help Ukrainians who have suffered and have been affected by this terrible tragedy. Answer their prayers and make their wishes come true. Please help my country, Russia, assemble the army of your strongest angels with sharp swords, led by Saint Michael in shining armor, and send them like heavenly avalanche onto this earth to replace the demons who we know by their faces and by their names with good Russians who will make Russia peaceful, loving, and respecting. Thank you so much. Dear Lord, please help all those who are traveling, send them safe travels. Help those who are in danger right now, send them safety. Help those who are seeking for asylum. Send them good people to help. Please help those who are crying in pain. Send your angels to help them. Help Ukrainians who are under threat of current attacks from Russians. Send them angels to protect them as well. And bless those who are helping Ukrainians, opening their hearts, homes, wallets. Please bless them. Dear Lord, please help all mothers, single mothers and fathers who are raising their children, struggling, trying to make ends meet. Please send them support and help those who are sick, addicted, hungry, cold, jobless, homeless, in tears, in pain, betrayed, not feeling well about their lives, not feeling well about themselves, depressed. Please send everyone your love, surround them in your warmth, and let them know that you're with them. You have not left them. They're not alone in this world. You're with them, watching every step and helping them in every single move. Thank you so much. Help everyone in need. I would like to thank you for this community. Thank you for everyone who's praying or just watching us pray. Please answer everyone's dreams and make their wishes come true. Dear Lord, I would like to ask you for help for a few people who need your help. They are Ann Larson and her daughter Hannah, Jeffrey S. and his members of his family, Alex from Albuquerque, Mark Rutan, Tom W., J.R. McKim, Frank in Texas, Gabing with Gary, Lisa Kumrian, Harry Potnin, Terry Carter, John McLean, Linda Trombley, Paula W., Dennis, Jason Carney, Susie Mailer, Tim Mayers, Dory, Rhonda McGillis, John, Taylor, Wayne, Dave, Don, Darla, George Ruberty, Pamela J., Metta Spencer, David Porter, Leif, Randolph, Grace, Dean Spooner and his church members, Yelena, Natasha, Michael, Jake, Oля, Dasha, Sky, Svetlana, Sergey, Liz, Ron Klotzer, Liz Dumbrell, Koshkin Dom, Sandra, Mike and Mike, Petra Olson, and Joseph Obaid. Thank you so much, dear Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Friends, thank you for coming. I'd like to remind you that you're awesome and you rock. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for not unsubscribing. Thank you for staying with me. It's fantastic to see everyone. We'll come up with a message for you tomorrow. It's going to be shorter. I'll try to make it interesting. I'll do my best. And before I sign off, I'd like to ask you to say along with me as usual, out loud, the usual. Carthago delenda est.